Folks, welcome back to the Bobby Bo Show. Here's the moves it starts with. It's another Caro-Kann, and they're going to advance the pawn, and I will advance my c-pawn. Now they play f4. It's a pretty uncommon move, but it's not terrible. It's just not the best move for white. I play knight to c6, and now they take my pawn. Now e6 opens up my bishop and attacks the pawn, and now they play queen to g4, because if my bishop takes here, they can take this pawn, and then my rook's gone. I have to think about what to do. And after 5 seconds, I play knight to h6 because it attacks the queen. And where does the queen go? Well, if it goes back here, then I go knight to f5, attacking the queen again and defending the g7 pawn. And then I can take the pawn here. But they play knight to h5. And this is a pretty typical beginner mistake of playing too many queen moves in the beginning instead of developing your knights and your bishops. Also, they played their f pawn, which, I mean, it's just not a good idea in general, unless you have a specific purpose. And you'll see the engine says -2, even after I take this pawn and the material is even. But it gets even worse for them once they play g4, just kind of adding on to their mistake here of moving the queen and the pawns out too early, because they're not developing and they're not thinking about their king's safety. So what do you do here? Well, it looks like they might be trying to attack my knight or something, but I'm just going to go here if they do, and there's no problems. So I'm not worried about anything over there, actually. And I can play this move, queen to b6. And look, I'm about to check their king right here. And if I don't checkmate you, you're at least going to have no king safety and no piece development. So now they're in trouble. The engine says -3, but I haven't secured the advantage yet. And now they finally play a knight move, knight to f3, developing their knight. But now I can play bishop to f7 check, and the king is stuck in the middle, can't castle. And it's going to be a pretty easy game for me. But actually, the engine says the best move, slightly better, is bishop to e3. And let's look at it here. If they take with their bishop, I take back with the queen here. Now it's getting even worse for them. They block with the bishop here. And what do you do here? How do you continue the attack? Well, if you said knight to d4, you lost because the knight takes here. So find a different move. Knight to b4? Okay, not bad. But knight to a3 now, defending it. And then you have to do what you should have done anyway, which is develop your light squared bishop. But how do you do it? Well, the best move now is b6, and you're bringing your bishop to a6, and then you're checkmating on e2, so they have to defend against that. Well, they either play knight to d2 or knight to c3. Engine likes knight to d2, and then they play c4 here. But I think players I would play against would probably play knight to c here, just to defend with the knight. And then you play bishop to a6, and this is even worse for them, because their best move is g5. But now I go knight f5, and it's still even material, but -5 on the engine evaluation. Here we go, knights are coming to here. You can't stop it. Only one knight defending the square here. Also, I could just push this pawn, and if your knight moves, it's checkmate. So king to f1, now the bishop can move, but now I have g6 attacking your queen. Where's the queen go? Engine says best move h3, bringing it back to defend the king. But now the knights come in, knight c to d4, and if this knight takes, the queen gets taken. Oh no, your bishop. But now knight captures f3. Now I'm about to play knight to d2 check, and then I'll take their queen. If the queen goes to g2, this is checkmate unless the queen takes. So they have to take, and then they lose their queen. And finally you're up material. But if instead they go queen to g4, now you play h5. And where does the queen go? Well, if it goes back to where it was, then you play knight to d2 check and take the queen. And none of these squares are safe. So you can't save your queen here. Actually, the best move is just bishop back to e2. And now you just take the queen. Okay, now the king defends the queen. But now f4, and you're up a pawn. Engine evaluation still -5, so we're getting there. Okay, now they can finally bring their rook into the game. Let's say rook to d1. But now knight to h4 check. And where does the king go? Well, you have to take the knight with the queen, and then lose your queen, because if the king goes to g1, it's checkmate in 2 moves. What's the checkmate? Quickly find it. And it's queen to d4 check. Knights are blocking these squares. Only move that stops checkmate is queen to e3. And it's game over. So that's why bishop to e3 is better here. But instead, I played bishop to e2 check, and it's still winning, but not quite as good. Now they play king to d1, and I play knight to d4, losing my advantage here. But they have to play the right move. I should have been getting my other bishop out, but instead, now they play knight captures d4, and after I take back with my queen, they can take a slight advantage by playing bishop to d3. But instead, They played knight to d2, the second best move, but now I'm holding on to a slight advantage here. And again, I need to get my bishop out and bring another piece into the attack, but instead I say, hey, let me take this pawn here. And once again, if they bring their light squared bishop out, then they have a chance here. But instead, they play knight to c4. And it looks like I'm in trouble here. My queen is now under attack by the bishop. This knight's defended by the bishop here too. They're about to come here and check my king, maybe even checkmate me. But what did they miss? Well, now I can just check the king. Before, the knight was on this square, defending here and blocking this check, but they completely missed that after they move their knight, they're no longer defending those squares. And I can play queen to f3 check, forking the king and the rook. Knight's still under attack, and they play bishop to e2, and it's checkmate in 6 moves. Queen captures h1, taking the rook. Now I'm up +6. King to d2, and now it's checkmate in 3 moves. But instead of finding the checkmate, I just took the knight, because I thought that was pretty easy. But can you find the checkmate? I'll give you a couple seconds to hit the like button. And it's bishop to e1 check. If the king goes to d1, it's checkmate. And if the king goes to d3 or e3, it's also checkmate. But instead I took the knight, and they played g5, attacking my knight now. But I play queen to d5 check, bishop defending these squares. King has to go to c3 and get checkmated, or block with the bishop. And before I take the bishop, I can just move my knight to safety because the bishop's not going anywhere. And now king to e2, attacking my bishop. But I'm up +9, so let's trade material. I take their bishop. They decide to take back with the pawn. And now I play bishop to g3 here, getting my bishop to safety, because if the pawn takes, I fork the king and the queen. So instead they play queen to h3. And now once again, they can't stop checkmate. Knight to d4, king to d2, and they resigned. About to be checkmate. It says checkmate in 6 moves after queen to a5 check, b4, take it, king to e3, queen to e1 check, king captures d4, oh no, my knight. But now bishop captures e5 check, and after king to c5, you have queen to c3 check. And it's checkmate after king to b5, bishop to d7. Your first time moving the light squared bishop, and it's checkmate. So they resigned here. And that was the end of the game. And that's probably when they started to regret playing queen to g4, because instead they could have played bishop to e3, defending the pawn here. So I played d4, attacking the bishop and getting ready to take the pawn. Bishop goes back to f2, and now I take the pawn. But now they have knight to d2. And their plan here is to bring the knight to b3 and attack the pawn, and eventually they're going to take this pawn and be up a pawn here. So let's see how the development goes. Knight to e7. Queen to f3, and now they're going to castle queenside, add the rook to the attack. Bishop to d7, castles, castles. Now knight to b3, as I said earlier, and the pawn is under attack 3 times. Also, my bishop is under attack, so I play b6 to defend it. And now they can play knight to e2, adding even another attacker, and continuing development. Queen to c7, getting my queen out of the way of the rook, and also putting it in line with the king. But now they take the pawn that I could not defend, and they're up a pawn. I can trade knights here, and then play rook to c8, lining it up with the king. And if it were my turn right now, I could take this knight, and if the bishop or the rook takes back, I have checkmate. So they have to play bishop to d3, and now we trade bishops. Bishop to b5, and they can't take because it's checkmate. So bishop to e4, attacking my rook. So bishop to c6 to get in the way, and now we trade bishops. And because they developed their piece earlier, instead of playing queen to g4, now we have an even game with a slight advantage for white. They're up a pawn, but more importantly, they didn't lose. So they probably regret that. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed this game. If you want to see more commentary videos, let me know by leaving a comment in the comment section. I just released a new rap video, check it out. It's called Don't Stop. Thanks for watching The Bobby Bo Show. Have an excellent rest of your day.